Would you like to learn about risk-based security architecture budgeting? If so, this video is for you. In today's video, we're going to discuss budgeting for your security architectures, and we're going to talk about taking a risk-based approach to it. So we will discuss what is risk-based security architecture budgeting, and we will talk about what goes into it in this side of a video. So what is risk-based security architecture budgeting? Well, it's a budgeting method that enables us to look at the risks, quantify the risks, and align a budget to go remove or reduce or mitigate the risk to an organization's risk tolerance. So basically what we're doing is we're quantifying the risk, we're knowing exactly what the risk is, and we're building a budget to protect the organization from harm based upon our unique risks. And if we actually look at risk management and risk mitigation, this is exactly what insurance companies do in their business, is managing risk. They look at the risk, they try to quantify the risk, and then they determine what they need to charge and how they would fund that and everything. And that's typically called actuarial sciences, and that's exactly what we're doing as security architectures with risk-based budgeting. So that's what we're going to talk about here. Now, when we do risk-based budgeting and we've quantified the risk, we understand the risk, and then we create a budget, we've got a budget that's exactly aligned or matched to our actual risk level, which is exactly what we want to be doing. So how does risk-based security architecture budgeting work? Let's talk about the process. So we security architects, the first thing we typically need to do is we've got to assess the organization's risk appetite. And that usually means speaking to the key executives that were in the organization, the various key stakeholders. And at that point, we will understand that organization's risk appetite, risk tolerance, whatever you want to call it. And then what we're going to do is when we understand the organization's risk appetite or tolerance, we're going to look at the organization's objectives and then figure out exactly how do we need to ensure security for that organization, because we have to view security risk as a business risk, because in many cases, if our systems are down, our business may be down, and therefore security risk does become a business risk. So that's the first step. Now, the second step is we have to build a quantifiable risk picture. What is our actual risk? So typically here we have to build a quantified risk picture, calculate what it would be. And during this process, we evaluate what our assets are, for example. We evaluate the potential attacks that we can have and the impact of the various threats that could occur if they were to occur, and the impact on a business. For example, what happens if ransomware were to hit the organization's order processing systems? Or what happens if someone took the data off of our SaaS provider? What is the impact of their business? What happens if we are attacked and our systems are completely down? What is the quantifiable impact to our business? So we're going to be looking for common attack patterns, especially the very common ones now that people are using, but not forgetting others. And we're going to think about how we might solve them. And when we think about how we may solve them, we have to build a budget around that, because some of the ways that we will use will cost money, obviously. So that's really what we're doing. We're quantifying every scenario that could potentially occur or that we believe could potentially occur, and we're mapping it back to the business so that way we understand. And we're looking at a perspective of business capabilities and what happens if those capabilities are not there because of something were to occur. So at that point, when we know what the risk tolerance is and we know what our actual risk is, now we need to start doing our risk-based architecture security budgeting math. And here's where we have to understand that in the world, there's no such thing as a zero risk situation. So we have to determine how we manage these risks. And generally speaking, not always, we manage the highest priority risks first, meaning the risks that have the biggest impact to the business by the highest dollar volume in most cases, but not always. And we have to think about what that risk is. And then from there, we have to come up with dollars to actually go fix or mitigate these risks. And that's typically what we're doing. And then we're going to build a plan around that. And that's our risk-based security architecture budget. Now, nothing changes and nothing stays the same. So the risks of today versus the risks of 3 months from now may not actually be the same. So generally speaking, within a good kind of risk-based security architecture budgeting, you're going to recalculate your exposure quarterly and try to rebalance your funds accordingly because the threat matrix always changes. So after 25 years as an architect, and I started talking about risk-based security architecture budgeting, what am I really saying? Risk first, not tool first. So look at the risk, find funding for the risk to protect that organization from harm. Make sure that our current threat lens is current. Don't be prepared for the attacks of yesterday. Understand what the current threats are and build a plan to go mitigate them. Definitely something I would recommend. Now, as my first chief technology officer said, just like Jerry Maguire in the Jerry Maguire movie, show me the money. Now, for every line item of risk, show how you can mitigate that risk and the cost to mitigate that risk. And hopefully, the cost to mitigate the risk is less than the risk, and that's an easy project to get funded. Think people and identities first. Let's face it, people can be well-meaning and well-intentioned and accidentally cause an attack by mistake. So the human element risk remains, and we want to use IAM and realistically think of people and identity and what we can do to reduce the risk of our people, whether it's training or limiting what they can do, for example. Think and constantly assess the situation because the reality is things change and you constantly want to be up to date. And AI is here. So make sure you protect your AI systems and fund protections of those AI systems because if anything were to happen to your AI systems, they can, especially if they're doing large functions, bad things can happen and they can happen fairly quickly. So make sure you build the budget in that. Now, I hope you enjoyed this video on risk-based security architecture or budgeting. And if you desire to become a security architect or a cloud architect or an enterprise architect or an AI architect, why don't you join me on a free architecture webinar? We run 1 to 2 each week. And on these free architecture webinars, we'll talk about the skills necessary to become an architect, like a security architect versus a cloud architect versus an AI architect. We will talk about what you need to do to stand out, get hired, and everything along the way. And the architecture webinar is free. It's on Zoom, so you can ask me questions, and it's live face-to-face, and I'll do anything I can to help you in your architecture career on these free webinars. So please sign up. The link is in the description below of the video. Now, if you enjoyed this video, please give it a like, subscribe to our channel, and hit the bell to be notified of new videos to assist you in your architecture career, like your enterprise architect career or security architect career. And if you really enjoyed this video and it helped you in your career, please share it with a friend because we'd like to help as many people as possible with all of our free architecture videos on this YouTube channel. This is Mike Gibbs signing off for now, and I hope to see you in another video or another webinar someday soon. Take care.